It was a bat signal in the sky in text format. Welcome back, guys, to Hxro Labs Live. We take the music down like 25%. It's a little loud in the ear. Thank you, sir. And shout out to Twitter or X users. If you are here today, we're live on Twitter as well. I'm just going to keep calling it Twitter. It's cool. I like the new branding. It looks cool. Yep. Still Twitter. Okay. Let's talk today. We got a lot to talk about. We got an hour to talk about it. The main thing I'm watching for this week, aside from, the main thing I'm working on this week is like protecting capital. I'd love to say I'm printing. Shorts are printing right now. I'm not in one, which is fine. But protecting rewind. Protecting capital. By the way, I'm on day 14. No, day 12 of no nicotine, and I still got brain fog. So if I'm all over the map, look like a hot mess, it's because I have not given in, and I'm not planning to. It's not even been that hard. Like, it's like, oh, this is hard. It's easy. It's like, it's painful. Time moves slowly, but it's never been like I guess I'll just, cave. And the closest I came, we had Canadian Thanksgiving last weekend, and I went out to some families, and they were like, we're going out for a smoke. And that was the closest I'd been. But then it's like, to what end? I'm going to go out and have a smoke, and then I never even smoked, so it was kind of gross. Anyways, there, pre-excusing all my brain fog today. But mostly protecting capital this week, as you guys know from last week or the week before. The thing I'm watching for this week, very interesting thing coming up. Let's flip over to this screen share. We've got the grayscale ruling, which is where let's look at Bitcoin. So right here, I believe, was the day. If we can get over to our screen share, live on the stream. There we go. So this right here was the grayscale ruling. I believe that was the one where the GBTC won their case. Basically, what was it, like suing the SEC for not letting them have fun things? And so the SEC has a period of time where they could appeal that court's decision, and that period of time ends in 2 days. So what does that mean? Well, if they appeal or don't appeal, we can glean information from that decision. Now, if they don't appeal, that means I would like to think that's like them tipping their hand, saying, you know what, we're ready. We're preparing approvals on some of these filings, and we're just not going to bother fighting GBTC on this because we're already, on the other hand, looking at things like ARK Invest and all that. We'll pull up some deadlines here so we can all take a look together, because this is probably the most exciting thing going on in crypto, and obviously the biggest catalyst we should talk about. So this is a nice little look. The first final deadline, if you want to think of them as always taking things to the bitter end, is the ARK 21 shares Bitcoin ETF. And that deadline is January 10th. So I guess my base case now is that something like an approval would happen very early Jan in advance of this deadline, and it would just be a broad approval of all of them. And I don't think I'm alone in that. But that's sort of where I'm at right now. So like, definitely not excited about the market anytime soon, like in the next week or two. But I will be pretty much back to all in cash wise sometime through January, pending new things that happen between now and then. But that's generally where I want to invest. Is that investment window is like that January going into the 2 years that tend to be the friendlier 2 years of the 4-year cycle. It's where I want to deploy, and that's been my position for a little while now. So the reason I'm paying attention to this appeal on Friday is because this could tip their hand. So if they do appeal it, it kind of suggests that they're just going to keep fighting tooth and nail to like stop everything and just be dickheads. So very possible. If they don't appeal it, it could be signaling that they're ready to back down a little bit on these and just start approving them. However, one thing I should point out here, if they do not appeal, they will still have an opportunity to step in the way of GBTC. I read that here 1 second ago, just as we were coming live. Let's just take a look here. If the SEC chooses not to appeal, the court is expected to issue an order detailing the next steps, which could include instructing the SEC to approve the application or to revisit the application. In that case, the SEC could still reject the proposal on other grounds. So it's not like if they don't appeal, we're out of the mud. But it would certainly be, I think, tipping their hand. So getting a little bit of information. So I guess the question then is, what do the smart money big player whales in the space, in the world, think of this, right? So if there's no appeal, is that a strong enough signal that the approval will be coming to reprice Bitcoin to some extent? If there is an appeal, is that a strong enough signal that we're just in for a big fight and they're probably just trying to reject everything? How much will this decision get as far as like a repricing in the market? Is this dump into the appeal deadline and then they don't appeal? Is that a good buy the dip? Is there a trade here? These are the kinds of things I'm thinking about this week. So we can talk about that. Hey, thanks, Vibes. He says, congrats on the nicotine. He says, that's massive. I agree, dude. It's going to be good. Turn the music down. Hard to hear. Yeah, I can't hear the music at all. Leverage kicker. It also asked, oh, it's been off for a while. Okay. Leverage kicker is just sitting there listening to his own music, blaming us. But yeah, it was loud at the start and I asked for it to be turned down. Now it's off. So we good, homie. You might need to refresh something though, if you're still hearing music, or get your head checked. Anyways, just kidding, dude. Great to see you. Great to have you here in the chats, and whoever's on Twitter. I can't see. I have no insight into who's watching or if there's a chat on X. So get over to YouTube if you want to say hi. That's the chat that I'll be watching. Let's take a look at the charts. At a very basic, this is a super basic look. We just had like a fat, this is kind of like the big level. I think on a weekly, it's a little more clear why I chose that exact part. There's so much noise here, deep, long wicks. So trying to use like candle body, put the top of the box here and the bottom of the box. Oops. Bottom of the box here. So you have some candle bodies to kind of whatever. And then we just tapped it. So that's like the big, big level that I'd be watching for as like hey, we're back into a bull. I can get bullish down here for sure. I'm going to be long down here to some extent. That's the trade that I want to be in for the longer term. But if I was not fully deployed and we broke above 32, I would just pretty much blindly deploy into Bitcoin or whatever else, something like Solana, if Sol BTC looked good at the time. But just looking at a super basic chart, we are now through the trend line. We have been for a while. We broke through it with some decent move, but no real volume behind it, which is a signal of weakness. And now we're just going to come down and retest that. That'll be the first thing we do. And so not that unusual. In fact, technically, well, actually only for about a week. But I was going to say, technically, Bitcoin's trending up on the daily, right? So you have your low, you have your high, you have your higher low, you have a higher high. So we're in an uptrend on the daily, even though it doesn't feel like it. And we're coming in to make a higher low for now. Lose this level, 26K-ish, and it's lights out for a bit. The trend reverses. But I wouldn't be looking for a trend in this market. Why? It's not really a trending market. It's a ranging market. So it's better to think of it as a range. It's just choppy. It's awful. And so you may notice I'm pretty quiet on Twitter. I'm not doing a ton of trading. I'm not sitting here saying like, today's the day I'm going to make it. Today's the day I'm going to grind and make some money. Like we've talked about this a lot on stream, so I don't want to get into it again and again. I want to talk about things we can do, but for the amount of effort, work, and risk you have to put into this market to get a good trade out of it, compared to the potential reward, I just don't like it. I don't like those numbers. I don't like that skew. So I'm waiting. I'm here. I'm present. I'm paying attention, but I'm not, in max deployment, max risk mode. And I think that is probably a wise position to be in. In fact, a very smart mentor of mine is advising that as well to me. So shout out to Elliot Rowe. You're a G. Love you. Now, the fear and greed index is down to 47, just trickling down from 50 over the last few days. I'd like to see that thing get into fear at least. Extreme fear is somewhere I would guess we're going to see in the next 6 months. I would say sooner. I'd like to see it before Christmas or through Christmas. Because again, for now, as far as throwing a dart a little far into the future without too much buildup, my base case is that these do get approved and that they get approved sometime just before January 10th, which would make sense if you get into the new calendar year. That first week of January is typically a very good investment window. It was most years, except for obviously the peak years coming off of like a massive bull market. It's always been a bad time. 2018 January, 2022 January, but like right here, where were we? This was your first week of January last year, and I had basically nuked all my stuff to USDC after FTX just to reset my life, because I had to kind of like, oh shit, I got nuked there by 75%. So I kind of gathered up all my coins. And then in this period of time, I sat there and I was like, wow, there's no way I want to be like all cash here. So I deployed pretty heavily through early January, and we had a good start to the year. And then, like most people, I imagine gave most of it back, a good amount of it back, trying to like overtrade the chop and whatever. So that's fine. If you got through this year without losing much, I think I'm still up a bit. I've got a spreadsheet that says I'm up actually a nice amount, but I feel like that's not factoring in some old shit coins that I recovered and moved into a wallet. So probably up a good amount, but not a crazy year. Speaking of being up, check out my new sports betting log. One thing you guys might not know is before I got into crypto, while I was still teaching and all that, I was I was still a degen, gambling, all that fun stuff. Oh, okay. Anyways, so I was a sports handicapper for a bit. I spent 2 years doing it. I mean, that is to say, I handicapped sports. It's not to say it's not like I was hired to do it or anyone really gave a shit. But I ran a thread on some old site. What is it called? SBR forums. And had that saved up. And so I'm going to get back into that a bit for a couple reasons. One, I love watching sports, and I only really like watching them when I'm betting on them. But just like anything with trading, it's really the edge comes down to your risk management, your understanding of bet sizing and odds and probabilities. And then if you can find some edge within that, like, hey, so-and-so's like birthday is today, and like I find players just tend to outperform on their birthdays. So like I'll throw a little extra on if it's not priced in, whatever. So you can kind of play with it. There's all kinds of narratives you can come up with to make bets and say like, oh, I have an edge because of this. So if nothing else, just to get back in the driver's seat for like risk management and the systems, because I've not been trading as much. And I think, well, I know that getting back into that mindset of tracking everything really tightly on the sports betting side will give me that practice or just refreshment that I need on my trading side, because my trading side has been messy, less well tracked, less disciplined, and all that stuff. So I don't know if I'm going to create a new account on Twitter to not overlap like crypto and sports betting, or if I'm going to create some new podcast or like live stream. But I'd like to get into this shit for hockey season, a little bit of NFL. Maybe some NBA live betting, because they have such big swings. You can really trade that nicely on the cash outs. So stay tuned. If you like this stuff, I'm going to be doing more of that. But I don't know, like I said, like maybe if you come to watch this show, you're like, hey, well, let's talk about crypto. And then I'm like talking about who's going to win the Leafs game last night or tonight. Like, you don't want to watch. So I may try to like splice it a little better so we don't get people overlapping and hating half of the content. Haven't thought that through yet, but we're cooking it up. MH in the chat says, what do you think of Bedard last night? Bedard was good. I had him all over the card. Full disclosure, I picked him up in my fantasy pool, which is an auction draft, and I got him at a cheap price. I didn't even really want him, but nobody bid against me, and I got him for a relatively cheap price. So I'm pretty high on Bedard now because I have him in this keeper pool. I can have him for like 5 years. But, aside from that, the kid is the real deal. And the biggest bet last night was just for him to get a point. I was surprised that just the over half a point was giving you almost, 58%. So I guess wasn't great odds. It felt like really good odds to me because I thought it was like, first game. This guy's been waiting all summer. He's really been waiting his whole life. The hype was real. So the biggest bet last night won. That was him getting an assist on their first goal. And then, Chicago pulled off the upset, which was nice to see in the third quarter. So third period. So the two bigger bets won, and then lost a couple little shitters that were like Bedard getting 2 goals, 3 goals. I actually had a dream. Now this is weird. Don't judge. But I had a dream the night before. I guess I had this game in my mind, and then randomly in this dream, I've been having vivid dreams lately. Maybe part of the nicotine leaving my system. I don't know. But I checked my phone in the dream, and it was 4-1 Chicago against Pittsburgh, as if like, and that game was coming up the next night. And I was like, okay. So I woke up with that in my head. I was like, well, I got to take the bet. Like, I got to take the exact score bet. I'd pay $25 to like not miss that than to see it come out and then be like, oh, I had a premonition. Anyways, the final score was 4-2. So it was weirdly close. Anyways, so that was the first night, up 1.1 units. Technically, it's a 10K bankroll, but I've only deposited 3K because I probably don't want that whole 10K on one book. And I haven't figured out which next book I will need or want. So next time I find better odds on a certain site, I'll create an account and deploy the next chunk there. But it's like 100 units, 10K, $100 units, that kind of. So I'll get into that, and I probably will separate that, whether that's like a nice 10-minute sport betting segment that we put out every day, or I just do a quick one on X. Like, I don't know. I have not looked into it yet, but as of yesterday, I've created the spreadsheet, and I'm going to get after it. And all the while paying attention to crypto, getting ready, because let's be honest, guys, the life-changing potential comes from trading, comes from, in my case, trading crypto, but ultimately, whatever you trade, to me, that's where you can really get it. Sports betting is fun. It's exciting and you can make some money, but like the edge is ever so slight, and it's also a slippery slope. So long term, 100% the money is in investing, trading, in my opinion. But in the meantime, I think as a nice little side ting, now if somebody could invent a product that merged trading and sports betting, then we would be in business, because you already kind of can do it, right? You bet on one team and then they go down in the second half, or the first half they go down, and then you could, like, essentially you're buying the dip. You can bet on them again at getting much better pricing and odds, and then like later in the game they come back a whole bunch and you can just cash out. You essentially bought the dip and sold the rip. You're already trading these products, but it's not done in the way that trading looks. So somebody's got to invent that. I might know a guy, and sometime soon we'll talk about it and hopefully get to use it, even though the Ontario government is cucking everything related to gambling. So it might be hard for me to participate, but anyways, this is interesting, spooky look at Bitcoin. This is the GAN that we've been following since sometime back here. As you can see, this arc created a lot of interesting resistance and then flipped it, retested it, and then just teleported up to the GAN angle and just basically chilled all the way up there. So some interesting interactions there. Not surprised, although still very impressed to see this thing coming into this arc and just getting no love. And it's like, if you don't believe in this shit, bro, then explain to me why and how. Like, how many people are really staring at this, that they're selling this? That's one of the knocks on TA. They say, well, support and resistance just work because everyone's looking at it, so it's going to work. It's like, okay, but who's looking at GAN? Drawn the exact way that I've drawn it. 500-to-1 ratio on the weekly starting at April 17th. Like, who's drawn it that exact way? So many people that they're all selling every time it touches this arc. And yet here goes this arc. And yet here goes this arc. So I think it's actually just the shit. Like, it's actually like whoever this WD GAN, the reason he said these arcs should act as time resistance, something to do with the vibrations in the universe, there's probably something to it because it just fucking works. So anyways, shorts are printing. Not entirely surprised by that, although, again, not sitting in the driver's seat fully trading this stuff right now. So just been watching. Really nice short setup did come in through this pump. One of the things too is, like, I was working through, like, quitting nicotine, and it's kind of like, trading when you're not sleeping well, trading when you're not working out, trading when you're all fucked up, trading when you just had a death in the family, like trading when you are not emotionally 100% is risky. So trading when you're quitting nicotine is also not recommended. So that's a bit of also why I've been extra hands-offish. But to come up into this GAN horizontal now, if you're wondering, this is the bigger, older GAN, the original one drawn up from the 2019 bear market. So I'm hoping that we can enjoy this one the same way, right? that we have enjoyed the last one. So for the last cycle, I had drawn this. I only really remembered that I had drawn it somewhere through the middle. I was like, oh shit, it's working. The friggin' thing put the top of the market. So that's interesting. At the very least, I want to pay attention to it now. And it's still kicking, right? I mean, it's still for a little while now. It's just been like living between these two angles. FTX came in. The low in the market was just one of these Gann horizontals. So, this thing gets its play. It's an interesting way to paint the picture. And if you guys watch the stream a lot, you're probably sick of me over explaining why I look at this thing. So we'll just get into it. But we came into this horizontal, tagged it. And so resting and testing up against that high would have been a really nice short idea on the daily, taking about a week to play out. But now we're just tanking down into the abyss. So interesting to see this angle or this arc, as resistance for a bit, teleport right through to the horizontal and now dropping off. So you should expect to see a little bit of a slowdown through these arcs. Sometimes you ride them down. There's no hard and fast rule. I think I would love to speak to somebody who trades off these things and has a really strong system. I think they're really for me looking at them, I'm like, they're better for investment or swing trading, not tight scalpy setups. But if I'm just like, hey, when we come into a higher time frame resistance target, I'm going to take some off. When we come into a higher time frame, angle or something, I'm going to put some back on or whatever. One thing I do know is that this is the loading dock. This is the area that I want to buy as much as I can, and that's cost of production. So this little blue line up here is cost of production of Bitcoin, calculated by somebody's algo overlay V1. Who knows how up to date it is, but it's the one I'm using. Bitcoin COP indicator on TradingView, and I'm pretty sure it's just an aggregate of all the different miners, at least most of them. And so that's important, right? Because really efficient miners, your cost of production is going to be lower. Less efficient, it's going to be higher. Some of the miners are already underwater; they're turning off their machines. Probably some of the miners, and then you have to factor in the cost of electricity based on where they are and stuff. So who knows how they get this number, but right now it's around 20K, which makes sense. And that would align with a few things. Now, I drew this on here yesterday because I was like, Brian and I were on the show. Well, Brian was on the show here, and then I joined him on his show a few weeks ago. And we talked while we were down here about this idea of coming up as a fall, Q4, October, maybe rally into a right shoulder, lower high over here, high, lower high. So I'm curious if this is the lower high and that's done now. Was this enough? I guess technically, if we break this neckline, that would be a confirmed head and shoulders where the right shoulder is lower. Why is that important? I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to short the breakdown, although that could be a really nice trade. I don't really like that. I typically work with the reload zones, as you guys know. So I'd be like, if there was a big short to do with this head and shoulders, I'd probably be just trying to be the shoulder up here, because then you can just risk against the highs where you can safely feel like getting back long is a good idea. Shorting this and then you're risking just being the wick down and then blasted. And where do you risk to, right? I don't know. I just don't know how people like that kind of breakout trading. Not my thing. So the reason I have it on here though is the measured move, just to see for some confidence. So we have this, we have that. And I guess now if this is the high, we could also think about harmonics, like an ABC pattern. Let's throw that on there. So just looking for some confluence in certain levels. And that's an area where I could look to place bids. So if you have like an A, B, and then a C, D, that would actually be to the pip of the 618. So from the low up to the high, take back 61.8% of that rally. That's your fib, key fib level, probably the most popular level in this reload zone. Like you'll see the 618 being the most popular fib level in general. Anyway, so it's interesting that that harmonic level is like basically that to a T. So that'd be an interesting level to watch, 21.7. And then depending where you're trading, you know, how big the wick is, if it's a capitulation event or if we're just kind of like, you know, like, is it something sudden and then we're just chilling? Or is it going to be like a slow and steady? So, and that's all in the realm of if we get down there. I think we will. I think it's a high probability that we will trade below 25K and shit everyone's pants and get everyone off the bus and, you know, build a new base, or maybe it's a quick stab. But I'll tell you this, we should put it on here actually. So the final deadline for the ARK iShares ETF is here. ARK, what is it? 21 shares? 21 shares and ARK. Let's put that on here. Be a good thing to know. To know the future. Wouldn't that be cool? 21 shares, ARK, ETF, final deadline. We'll put that there. There. So, yeah, if I'm expecting there's to be an approval there, which right now, again, base case, what is that? 60%, 70% that I think that'll happen, but doesn't mean much, except for that I want to think that way because I don't want to get caught assuming it's like all the way out to Feb or March or April. And then that's how you miss it, right? I do think I'll get caught off guard by this. I think most people will, whether that is because it comes early or gets rejected. I feel like the improbable thing that catches a lot of people off guard is what will happen. It's just usually the way shit goes. So if we break down from 25, I'm probably just going to start like a DCA through this because a breakdown of here, like that's where you're going to start to see this guy roll right over into fear and extreme fear. I'd like to see extreme fear. The lowest we've been since the start of the year really was 30 on the fear and greed index. I don't even know if that's extreme fear. Can't really tell. Point is, we've had a pretty fearless year. I guess this was that. Yeah. Was it? Where was that? I'm curious now. Let's see. September 12th. Oh, no, it was the next one. It was right here. Yeah, so there was a lot of fear on this kind of move down from here, which is too bad. That's the week I went to Utah. That was actually on my chart. I was like, man, this just seems like it's been a 60-day pullback. Like it's probably coming to the end of the move. Will be a sweep of these lows. I watched it happen. I was like, I'm traveling this week. I'm not going to trade. So it's been a fun trade. Actually, it looks like it was a little ABCD itself. Let's see. Yeah. So just a little harmonic, little beep, 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 ABCD. Nice trade, bros. I know my boys got that one. Somebody at TRI traded that nicely. Probably a little bot setup somewhere zoomed in. Anyways, so yeah, harmonics are cool. Yeah, that's about it. Notice I haven't talked about altcoins yet. I'm not going to talk about altcoins. I don't think altcoins are a very good thing right now. I think they will be a great thing someday. I think the liquidity cycle will start with Bitcoin again. In fact, I would hope it does. So maybe I'm a little biased. There is a time to make a wish list for alts. I think they will outperform Bitcoin long-term, midterm. I don't know about midterm, long-term. That's what we're here for. But I think it's early. And I think the more I look at them and the more there's probably some value. Okay. There's probably some value to DCAing into some really strong, underpriced or, beaten down altcoins right now. But for me to do that in this environment, I would want to look at, computer just had a seizure. We're good. I'd want to look at this trend master. Like I would want an uptrend. There is one coin I have a little bag of that's doing pretty good. Maple. Maple's doing good. So I don't know what's the story over there. Let's go look at it on a cleaner chart. It's coming off a little today, but there was some signals there in the sense of like buyers stepping in. You had the whole setup, and this is what we talked about on stream. I think so we talked about this on stream a few weeks ago. The idea of the 3-step setup. So you want to say location. Okay, I'm in the reload zone. You'll say divergence. You have your bullish divergence, and you have lower lows on price. That's your bull divs confirmed, and then you had your W confirmed here, and then you had the retest. That's where you would long, and now you have your trade. So that's your 3-step trade. It's actually in the midst of this bearishness, kind of playing out really nicely, which is interesting. It's nice to see. Yes. So that's cool. I noticed that yesterday. Maple having a pretty sweet little time here. But that's such an outlier, right? So cool, trade it, have fun, follow your plan. But part of my plan talks about like when in general to be aggressive and not aggressive. And this is just generally not an aggressive time for me. I'd like us to move through this arc. I'd like us to move through this arc. And on the other side of this arc and that other arc, These GAN levels, that's where on that kind of swing level, right? We were talking about that earlier. Like, how do you trade off this GAN thing? Like, I'm going to use it more as a forecasting tool for when to be thinking swing long, and that's when you move through the arc. You notice here how price moved through this arc, and then let's do it. I always talk about when you zoom in, it looks really cool. We never zoom in. Let's go zoom into that. It actually looked really clean. It was great. So even as it just like got rejected, and then it blasted through, retested it. So pretty clean interaction with this arc as far as moving through it, and it didn't waste much time. And there's a few ways zoomed in you could dissect this kind of thing and say, okay, we're through the arc. I'm ready to be long. Where do I get it long against? Where do I get to risk against? Like get the reload zone out, risk against the pivot low that was made before the breakthrough. Like, that's kind of going forward what I'm using these GAN squares for. At least like my next use case will be that. So right now we are being pinned down by the arc on the new GAN, and the old one is still just in that arc. So neither look ready. It'll be interesting to see, as this one loses relevance because it's coming into the end of its time. Oh, it's been fun, buddy. But your time is almost over. Actually, it ends directly on February 6th, 2024. It will officially be out of the GAN square. So yeah. Wonder if you could do some weird freaky inversion thing where you take this and you like mirror it and stick it over here, and then it like continues up a new arc. I don't know. We should try that as a fun study since this thing will be dead after that anyways. But yeah. So that's what I have in mind as far as like thinking about getting along. Just not really doing that right now. What are you guys doing? Talk to me in the chat. Am I way off? You guys sitting there flipping shit coins, making a bunch of money? Or I say that honestly, I've not been paying too close attention to the pit. But if you've been in the weeds and you're finding some juice, we saw the inevitable dilution of Friendtech with a bunch of other copycats popping up. Maybe Friendtech. Let's go look at it, actually. Let's go see. How do the charts look on Friendtech? Can we see them? Yeah. Okay, let's take a look. Yeah, not coming off as hard as I thought. That was a Captain Levi. Oh, no. Let's see that chart. Yeah, so they're just like consolidating. I know. Where's Racer? Racer's like the founder, right? He's come off quite a bit. So yeah, there's a dip. So, sitting here, if I was about to say it's all over Friendtech, I don't think it is, but there was a dilution event, right? Stars Arena, some other ones, still a couple more coming in the pipeline, I'm sure. Anyways, a little bit of a lull over there. So buy the dip, sell the rip. I don't know. We'll see how much chasing of this narrative of this use case is there, liquidity available? Can it supply all these new pop-ups? Everyone trying to be early to the next one. Clearly just there to chase the gains. Nothing wrong with that, but just be aware of what you're buying. And then do these copycats have the cool point systems and big airdrops, and how will all that play out? It's very interesting. SocialFi will def come back. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we see it with everything, right? You see it with Ohm, and then Wonderland, and then what was the one that came after Wonderland? It was terrible. Something about carbon credits. Anyways, like that Ohm model, the 3-3 stuff, right? It was great. It worked. It was cool. It was hot. Everyone wished they were early. They looked at it. They said, I wish I was early. Well, if you want to be early to something and you weren't, just copy it, recreate it, and then you can be early to that one. And that mindset gets used in all of these things. And then what happens is the liquidity that might have been available there for that original idea gets diluted into all the other follow-up ideas, and then the whole thing falls flat. And we see that time and time and time again in the market. So I would expect to see that with SocialFi, Friendtech stuff as well. And then from that, you sometimes get things that come back. Now, let's go look at Ohm. Ohm. Very curious. I haven't looked at this thing in so long. Oh, look at the daily. Oh. Okay, what's going on over here? This is not the one. Let's do it on like an old CMC based chart. Olympus. Oh, there's a V1. Okay. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Yeah, so we're not getting full chart history. It was a fun one. V2. Ah, there it was. Huh, whoa. Yeah. So $11. Has not come back. Now, I think as we know from these, market cap is a little bit more important, right? If this thing is printing, but the market cap is growing, then it's technically growth because you're printing with the growth, whatever. So you should probably look at the market cap. I think we can do that actually with this brilliant tool. Where's the V2 market cap? Yeah. Oh shit! Look at that. So we're seeing some growth in Ohm. So there's some interesting things where like, once these things dilute and just lose their excitement and their value, whatever, and then you just see which one has real staying power, which one, has utility. One that comes to mind that I thought is interesting is Spell. Spell. Let's look at MIM. I mean, it's still a stable coin. MIM. The whole point of Spell was to create a decentralized stable coin. For those of you who don't have it in front of you, I can confirm based on CoinGecko that it is still pretty much $1. Fully diluted 165 million. Let's see. Price. Now, I'd love to see like a market cap. Yeah. So MIM's market cap was crazy and then it fell off. Now, what's crazy to me is that they had an FTT cauldron and they had a UST cauldron. So the Luna stablecoin UST, and then they also had FTT. So like, in other words, they had a bunch of bad debt in the collapse of those and it still survived. So the system, not only does it work, it's incredibly resilient. Very impressed that Spell exists, that Magic Internet Money still works. I'd be curious to look into like how liquid the pairs are and which places, how much utility does it have? Yes, it's stable, but can I get in and out of those positions? Can I use it in DeFi? The fact that it still exists is impressive. I'd say bravo to the creators of this coin and the system, because a lot of things did not survive the UST collapse and the FTT collapse. And these guys were built very programmatically to do it. So that this one comes to mind. Now, does that mean Spell itself will be a big winner through some kind of bull market? I don't know. I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of, what's it called? Inflation on this coin as well. And yeah, I mean, it's not dead. The fact the product still works. Now, I know Spell's primary use case for a long time was like incentivizing like curve gauges. So, inflation incentives. So maybe not a great hold. But then there was some staking on their Spell website too, which was getting APRs based on the cauldrons and stuff. So I don't know. This is not like a go buy Spell chat. It's more just like a, hey, look at these things that are working. Look at these things that are, and it's interesting in the market. You get these like nice coins, tokens that represent a product that people actually use or that it works the way it was supposed to work. And then it's amazing sometimes how unexciting they can be. And like everyone's like, oh, I don't care. I want the new thing, the thing that's going up. And that's an important lesson to learn as we head into a new cycle. I was in a lot of denial last cycle with the names that I had held from 2017, 2018, 2019. And I said, oh, next cycle, it's all good. We'll be back. They've been building. But then all these new things came out. AVAX and Solana and all these new things that didn't exist in 2017, 2018. And they became the new darling childs of the next cycle. And some things survived, namely Ethereum, and it did really well. But for the most part, nothing really made new highs. I'll give you a good example. Like a lot of stuff did. So we can find examples of the ones who did. But, Dash is one I remember. It was just like, oh, what's that? I guess that's, oh, there we go. I was like, whoa, the log makes it look weird. So this was Dash, darling child of 2017's bull run. Yeah, it didn't die, but that's what happened the next time. And, I don't know if you guys, if you've seen these like charts that are like this. They just kind of show like how these like things, and then they just trend to zero over time. Like that's probably what a lot of these things do. As even if they end up, like I said, MIM, Spell, like they're doing the thing they're supposed to do. It's a stable coin, can earn yield on, yielding positions. Like, but next cycle, I guess what I'm trying to say is next cycle, I've now kind of come to terms with this whole shiny new toy theory. And if I'm a trader who's just in the market trying to make as much money as I can, or an investor who's trying to invest in things, naturally you're investing in new shit because rarely do you get a coin like Dash or some old coin that's in, taking an investment round. Anyways, so looking for new stuff. Now, if something came out, like in this case, Maple launched in February 2022. So I don't really count this one as already having had its bull cycle. It had its Gartner hype cycle, and it's not, that was its like post-launch little rally, and then, drowned out from there. I don't count this one as having, it's going to have some overhang. There's going to be some underwater bags that want to get out, and there's going to be some resistance coming up. But I'd say this one could have its own bull cycle. And I don't know. I have to look into it a little more, market cap there and stuff. But coins like AVAX, which is dear to my heart, big fan of AVAX, what they're building, what they've done, their coin. I mean, not a fan of the coin from like a purely like, here's the thing I want to hold right now. However, we can find a better one. So I think there'll be some like similar to Ethereum from 2017 through to 2021, where it just went on to make new highs. Could that be Solana? Probably. Could that be AVAX? Probably. I'm feeling a little better about Solana than AVAX, obviously, but yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I'm probably going to focus from a trading perspective on shiny new toys, even though as soon as there's a weekly W on this chart and it looks like it's ready for an uptrend and I see some buy volume stepping in, I'm happy to jump on the AVAX train. I love it. I am still investing in some things building on AVAX. I'm still a big fan of the tech, but I'm not going to hold a coin that's trending down on the weekly. That's just a rule I have from a don't be homeless perspective. Got to stay alive, got to pay the rent. And so also, I think for next cycle, I want to get into running validators. I don't know which coins I'm going to pick or which chains, but like, I think it'd be cool to get some DApp nodes, up on the wall at home and just have some validators running and get a little more into the techie stuff. Again, as I get older, I'm finding myself wanting to become more passive, more investy, more swing tradey, like buy January, sell April, instead of like, and then when the market begs you to come sit in front of it every day, because every time you don't, there's a 10x going off somewhere. That's the bull market. Then I'll sit there and grind. But outside of that, general year over year, I think moving much more towards the investment swing trade like style of existence, so you can focus on family and some other things, and maybe even some content. Like I said, like some sports betting and some bullshit, some fun stuff. Anyways, ICE is one of the few alts that have a narrative to play on at the moment. I also think Grail, aka Camelot, is interesting. Yeah, Grail came up on a call yesterday. We were reviewing the market. I forget their exact takeaway. The analysts that I work with, sharp guys. I feel like it was like a lukewarm thing, and something to do with like an Arbitrum application. I don't know. I got to get Smeety Boop on here to talk about it, but I do know Girl came up on our call yesterday. I just forget what the conclusion was. It certainly wasn't a screaming buy, although if you want to look at purely a TA setup, which is probably a big part of why it was on our call, there's a few TRI guys who work with me over there, and they all see the same thing I see, right? They see a low, they see a higher low, they see a high, they see a higher high. And so that's your W. And when you get that kind of W breakout on volume, I don't see a ton of volume here, but I know it trades in a few places. So maybe there was a more collective, but then that reload zone after that W is typically a really good buy zone. So purely based on TA. And then if you got in a little closer here and you looked at the hourly, it doesn't look very liquid, but apparently it is 7 million. Not bad. But if you looked in here and you tried to maybe find some bull divs or something and then get a little W here, but yeah, working on something out of this reload zone is not a bad idea. For all of the shit that's out there right now, I know there's some Arbitrum proposals going on and people getting grants and stuff, protocols getting grants. I don't know what the thing is with Grail, but yeah, it's on my radar, I guess you could say, if I was looking. And then ICE, Danny back in action, going with the new WAGME token, an omni-chain coin that is going to do some cool shit. I don't actually know all the details. I started digging into it, but then decided to wait. This seemed like too much too soon for me. So yeah, it's like, hey, look, it's coming in, coming into this like 85 cent range. I mean, I would love to have a bag, if nothing else, to support my guy. Big fan of Danny. but also to get some WAGMI. I think you need ICE to bridge over and claim some WAGMI, and whatever you can do with that. I'm sure there's some decent utility with it because the dude is super sharp. I don't know if he's the one who built Spell Abracadabra. He definitely was working with the team. I don't know if he would take credit for like the invention of it or if there's like two other devs or whatever. But either way, he was instrumental in the founding of Spell Abracadabra and MIM, which I just went on about how brilliant it was. So yeah, when you find a good dev who knows how to drum up excitement, pay attention. So really nice to see him back in action. And as I wait for this to kind of settle into an area that I want to get into, this is probably one of the trades. I agree, Vibes. It's one of the best narratives going on right now for alts. And so, yeah, I would certainly be looking to take a little position here. And because of the market state, half on a double kind of thing. Buy, sell half, free position, no worries. Ride it into the abyss, stake it, whatever you can do with it, use it. So yeah, I agree. This one's building a base, and you can see it on the chart. Volume, volume, volume. Buyers. There's buyers down here. And that's what you want to see on these coins that you're buying between bull cycles. You want to see big evidence of big buyers stepping in, filling their bags, putting in floors. And it's crazy how much of this happens across the board around the same time. There's a lot of altcoins. I did this show in this last cycle where it was just like across the board, like there was just a huge buy bid in the market on so many altcoins. Like it felt like 80% of them, like any main ones. And then they all followed a similar pattern. So it's almost like there's some whale somewhere or some cartel of whales somewhere who decided where bottoms in this market for altcoins will come in. And you just got to try to spot them. They're not invisible. You can see them on the charts a lot of times. Nice buy volume here on AVAX, but that was really negated when it made new lows here, and not so much buy volume on this little push up right into the trend line, which is a little cleaner, however you want to draw it. From wick to wick is officially the right way to do it, and it's just been trending down. So if I was going to be excited about AVAX, I'd have to see it at least move through this trend line with a daily W on the other side, but more likely I just want to see a weekly W. Doesn't mean they're not building cool shit over there. Just means the token itself has a lot of inflation that's used to pay validators, and those validators need to get paid, so they're selling their stakes, whatever, their rewards. Anyways, I think that's it for us today. It was a good sesh. Keep an eye out on my Twitter for some more sports betting banter. If you're into that stuff, maybe mention it in the comments on Twitter so that I know anyone cares at all. But it'll be a lot about attracting like a new audience as well, because I don't expect a ton of people that trade crypto also are that serious about betting sports. But I plan to take it seriously, even though it's a sized account and such that, just say you have like a plus 50 unit season, which is really good for sports betting. I'd say if you're doing like a grind season long, based on what I used to see back in the day, like that'd be a pretty good outcome. And at $100,000 or $100 units, that's, what is that? 100 times 50, 5,000. It's not very much money, right? For an entire season. So I'm not doing it for the dollar upside as much as the discipline and excitement. And frankly, it just makes watching sports more fun. I like it. Okay. So if we can make some money, I'd like to go for 100 unit season. And obviously, as I gain confidence season over season, get back into it, build a little system. Get into like larger unit sizes. Yeah. 10K unit sizes, ultimate goals. Someday, maybe. Okay. Thanks for joining today, guys. Keep an eye out for the SEC appeal Friday deadline. That's the biggest thing that's going to happen this week for crypto that I can see. Otherwise, it's been a blast. Take care. Whatever you do from now until next time, always play from a position of strength. Peace.